communication company looking to expand into web-based training. Our clients at the time were high-tech and telecom companies, and they wanted to train their extended enterprise, their value chain of resellers, to sell better, to be more knowledgeable, and to sell more. And right from the beginning, almost 20 years ago, we realized that non-employee learners or voluntary learners of the extended enterprise needed a reason to want to engage in the training. So our training programs were 50% marketing and 50% training. They were high budget, they were sold to non-HR owners, and that content was way better than any internal employee training that we were creating or that anybody else was creating at that time. Well, through an odd sequence of events, me being somewhat of an introvert, found myself in the most extroverted of jobs, selling high-end LMS solutions for 13 years for two Tier 1 providers. But unlike any of my sales peers, for that whole time, I focused all of my prospecting and attention on trying to find extended enterprise LMS opportunities versus internal LMS solutions, mainly because it was more fun, the budgets were bigger and larger, and they were more available because they were tied to measurable business results. And over the years, I became a self-taught expert here on not only the technology of the extended enterprise, but how to build that business case, a measurable business case, to help you get that initial funding and grow your business of extended enterprise training over time. Well, in almost 20 years that I was focusing on this, there was nowhere to go that you could learn anything about the topic. Analysts generally ignored extended enterprise except at a high level, and after the round of acquisitions that our industry has experienced here over the last few years, almost all the vendors stopped talking about extended enterprise also, as they look towards speaking about their integrated talent management strategy instead. So after that $50 million of generating revenue early this year, I decided to hang up my shoes, my sales shoes as it were, and found Talented Learning to be that place to go in the world. We research the extended enterprise industry, the vendors, and we post our findings on our weekly blog, and we have a weekly webinar every Tuesday afternoon. We basically help clients buy better and LMS vendors sell better. And so it's that experience of the last year of researching, but then 20 years or almost 20 years of working inside in various capacities, the extended enterprise space, that I got the information not only to start the company, but to create this blog content. That's what I'm going to share with you today. And so, when there is any discussion about extended enterprise from the analysts, it's almost always targeted towards the measurable benefits and how you're missing out by not doing extended enterprise, especially from a vendor standpoint. If you're not doing this, you're out in the cold. But so say you believe that and you're ready to get going. So what is it you need to get started? How do you go about that? What technology is required? Where does the budget come from? How do you measure success? These are all the questions that people have when they're getting started here in extended enterprise training. And through this webinar, hopefully I'll outline some answers and some practical advice to get you going here in the right direction. And so, let's get started. So, if you noticed in my preamble, when we originally started selling extended enterprise, we were selling to non-HR people. They were the marketers, manufacturing, customer support, sales were the owners of these solutions, and not HR and talent. And so, I'd like to see where you folks fit into the equation. Give you a couple seconds here to click on that. Wow, interesting. Here, let me. Looks like you can see the results right now. So you can see the results. We've got. It looks like it's evening back up. 45% are non-HR trained professionals, and a whole bunch of you that are in the other category. Go ahead and text into the chat box here what you are, what your other is, just so that we can double back later on. But this isn't really surprising because from what I see inside the marketplace. Still today, the most progressive organizations are using their HR and their training groups to reach out and embrace the extended enterprise. But those groups have to have the initiative to actually want to get into that space because it's typically not part of their job description. And so very commonly we're finding executives or other parts of the organization that are still deploying their own extended enterprise systems and not leveraging off their internal employees. The funny thing is, though, is that out in the marketplace, the LMS salespeople that are selling extended enterprise treat these non-HR or you non-HR people the same way as they would sell an internal LMS. And so they throw the jargon around, SCORM and AICC and LMS and LCMS and SSO and CRM and Tin Can and XAPI and mobile learning and social learning, and the eyes just glaze over because you're coming at it from a business perspective and not from Gagne's inventive instruction. And so it's a very different approach that's required to not only sell, but to think about how this technology can aid in the business. So what is extended enterprise learning? So since nobody's defining, I decided to define it myself, and I define it as any training effort that's targeted at your non-employees at its most simple. Every industry globally uses some form of EE learning, and they all have that same fundamental challenge. You can tell your employees to take training. You can compel your employees to take training, but you cannot compel voluntary users to do anything. So you need to treat voluntary or channel users or customer users or member users differently. You need to treat them better because you have to make them want to come back and want to engage in your content, want to open up their wallet, and want to revisit the site time and time again over time. And if you can't make them want to do it, you really don't have anything. So I broke down the market as I saw it in my experience of the 5 different types of audiences or extended enterprise type initiatives that were out there. The first one, and mainly today it's centered around the corporate. That's training your sales, your distribution channel, your resellers, your agents, that network that acts in your stead. It's also, the other big group is the actual users and the customers of products and services, and training them and training them to aid or increase your business. They want to drive sales. They want to drive customer satisfaction. They want to drive speed to market. That's why corporations have extended enterprise. Member organizations, the associations, they use it as a way to generate a new stream of revenue. They've been selling trade shows and access to content for years, but now they're using online content and certifications and accreditations as a way to develop a whole new stream of revenue for the member-based organization that far eclipses the traditional membership dues. For-profit training companies, small and big, locally, globally, exist that train every conceivable type of content available in the world, and they're all now moving online, moving their seminars online, moving their online content online into LMSs. And so extended enterprise, how to attract new customers, how to open up cross-sales and up-sales are the things that they're measuring and worrying about. The public sector is all about cost savings and trying to do more with less, and the academic, with the evolution of MOOCs, is now put higher education and even high school education squarely in the commercial space, because now they have the exact same challenges of attracting students, voluntary students, getting them not just to take the free open courses, but sign up and pay for the accreditation. So these are the types of audiences that worry about extended enterprise and moving the industry forward. So what do they all have in common? They're doing one of these 3 things. They're trying to make money, they're trying to save money, or they're trying to reduce their cycle time. And the evidence of the improvement in the business exists time and time again. Just this week I posted the top 10 channel learning case studies that I have discovered here on my travels. And there's 10 great examples of making money, saving money, or reducing cycle time, why these organizations are doing it. Cisco, if you tuned in on Tuesday, they experienced 2 times the sales volume from a channel partner that just goes through their basic certification. If they go through the 3 tiers of certification that Cisco's offers, their value-added resellers sell on average 7 times as much. 7 times. Imagine that. Imagine how easy it is for them to get new channel partners by showing the business results of achieving a 7 times increase in sales by taking Cisco's training. EMC generated tens and tens of millions of dollars every year from the sale of their content. Yum Brands, the saving money aspect. So Yum Brands reduced employee turnover by 20%, increased hospitality scores by 2%. But the argument of saving money training your extended enterprise is the exact same argument we've been using for a couple decades for e-learning. It allows you to create high-end content once, standardize the instructional design, maximize the efficacy of the content, develop one and deploy up to millions of times. Very scalable, allows you to maximize your budget. Those same arguments are the exact arguments that organizations use to fund extended enterprise initiatives, because those same cost savings exist. And then this reduction of the cycle time for a competitive advantage. So your time to bring up new agents, your time to open up new franchises or dealers, the time to make a channel partner's sales representative productive, to decrease all those cycle times so that you can be more nimble and rapid in the marketplace as a competitive advantage. And so what do you need for an extended enterprise? You really only need, in my opinion, three things. You need a learning management system. And you need a learning management system as the backbone of the problem, and is most typically cloud-based, and it provides a storefront or a portal that houses your catalog of content of any media type. It keeps track of your users and the association between the content and the users. With an LMS, you can track who has or who hasn't completed training activities, and that provides the backbone, or that provides the fundamental data that you need to start measuring your success. And we'll talk about that in just a second. Training your extended enterprise without an LMS is kind of like running your business without using accounting software, or running a sales organization without using a CRM. It's possible, but it's hardly a competitive advantage, and it's not scalable. But with the LMS in place, then you need good proprietary content to put into you need that content that's going to enable your channel or your customers to use your products and services better, to self-educate themselves, so that they become brand loyalists, so that they help build your brand and extend your brand into the marketplace. It can consist of any type of training. Very commonly, we see organizations doing just what we're doing today, and having webinars, recording those, wrapping those with assessments, putting them into the learning management system as certifying modules. And you can do that with just a little bit of prep, or you can go all the way to creating simulations or formal e-learning modules, or mobile learning, or integrating social learning with that. But the content can be anything from formal to informal, and it grows over time. And each piece is measurable. Each piece has a value, and if it doesn't, it's typically not in the system. But to fund all this, and to fund a measurable, or the content in the LMS, you need a measurable business case. The measurable business case is the only way that you can secure the needed budget to launch the program, and it's the language of the executives that hold this budget. And so if you can frame the argument of why the organization needs to invest, proof of past results, and predicted future results, you have a good chance of getting the budget that you need, and even more, to extend and grow and extend your extended enterprise from there. So here's another poll. Let's interact. So now we're coming from the three different groups. We see that some of them are partner enablement, partner great, director of content and learning strategies. So a variety of perspectives here. What do you think is the most important of those three? Is it the LMS, the content, or the measurable business case? I have a bias. Oh, somebody just got my bias. We'll give this a couple of seconds here for the rest of you to engage. So the overwhelming amount of you think it's 55%. It's catching back up. I think it's content, and the other half, or close to half, is measurable business case. I think it's measurable business case because I'm practical, and without a measurable business case, you don't have to even worry about the content. So I think the one comes before the other, but at the end of the day, measurable business case equals budget, in my opinion. So I helped across these 13 years, I saw so many projects start or try to start, but never get the appropriate funding to actually launch a project. I gave countless demonstrations to people that thought extended enterprise was a great idea, only to find that they couldn't procure the budget internally. And so as I got wiser, as I got older through those 2 decades, I quickly accelerated the discussion about the measurable business case and tried to offer help to think about that business case to be successful. And this is the process that I tried to engage my consultants on the way through, to go through an LMS audit, identify your extended enterprises audiences, find metrics in the business that you can impact, crunch the data, and then create your business case. So let's quickly go through here and look at this, and then you can launch here. So LMS audits. So the first thing you got to find out is, do you have an internal LMS, or do you have any other extended enterprise LMSs? Where do they exist in the organization? Find out who owns them. Can you buy space on them? Can you open up a domain and load your users and your content in them? Is there a way that you can leverage the technology and the contract vehicle that already exists in an organization so that your hill is that much less to climb to get that budget? And you also have to evaluate whether it has the right feature set, because it is 50% marketing. So we need social and mobile and virtual learning capabilities and globalization and the ability to integrate it and powerful reporting. So does it have the capabilities to support your extended enterprise? And find out what that's the first piece of the puzzle to start tracking. The second piece is identify all your extended enterprise audiences. So here's the big aha that I had as I was going through the 20 years, is that organizations aren't used to looking at this data in this manner. And they don't know what they spend to interact with customers, because is it customer service? Is it marketing? Is it sales? There's a lot of different people that can own touching customers or your extended enterprise. And so it's hard to see that budget all in one place. So you got to do the work. And I always help them do the work to say, okay, what are all the different ways that you can distribute your product, and what are all the different ways that buyers are using your product, and what are those audiences, and does it differ from product to product or group to group or audience to audience, and identify all of those. If you can identify all of those, then you're ready to go to the next step of putting a dollar figure or a financial figure to it. But you have to do this for all the groups, and go to sales and marketing and places that don't seem obvious, especially if you're from HR, to build this business case. And so once you find all those different groups, then it's time to document what they're actually doing. So it's nothing but elbow grease. It's rolling up your sleeves and asking the questions and documenting it in the spreadsheet. But for each of those audiences that you found, how are the owners interacting with them? Do they have technology? Are they just putting it on a portal? Are they sending them CDs? Are they sending them paper packets? Are they coming to trade shows? What are all the different ways that you're interacting? How many people are they interacting with? So out of that audience, how many are you touching? Is it 1,000? Is it 10,000 a month? Get that number definitively. Find out if they're measuring any ROI metrics, so that you can jump on board with the understanding of how they're buying and funding extended enterprise inside their organization. What do you spend? What are the hard costs, the soft costs, the labor costs? Document it all. Figure out if you can figure out what it costs each group, and then roll it up and see what your organization is spending. And what you're going to find is there's duplicity of systems, there's duplicity of content, duplicity of authoring tools. There's a lot of places that you're wasting money and wasting effort because you're not looking, or the organization's not looking at it holistically. So they're looking at group by group. So now you got those pieces in your toolkit now. Now you got to go after the last piece. And once you have this piece, you put it all together. So ID the measurable impact areas. If you're a public company, go to your 10K or 10Q report, open it up, look at the management discussion and analysis section, and it'll articulate very clearly what are the business goals of your organization and what they're trying to achieve from a market standpoint. And put that in the back of your head, because if you can tie to those goals, that's a great way to get funding and figuring out how you can move the whole company forward when the company's thinking, or the organization is thinking about it at this macro level. But extended enterprise is all about impacting behavior. We want to impact behavior of our audiences, and then more importantly, we want to measure that impact. So what we want to look for is find access to reports. And if you need to get executive help to do this, you got to do whatever you can to get access to the reports. How are your channel partners performing? How many salespeople do they have? How many of their clients are calling into customer support? What are our customer support? What are our open tickets? What are tickets coming from the different channel partners or customers. Identify any type of business metrics that you can. These metrics exist in your organization because it's crucial to running a business. And so you just have to get access to that. Now, once you have that access, you have all the pieces that you need. It's time to crunch the data. You know your extended enterprise audiences and how you currently interact with them and what it costs. You've identified the duplicity of systems and determined cost savings if you consolidate it. You know the cost, process, and politics to expand your current LMS and launch a new cloud LMS. You know the business goals of the organization, and you have access to business reports. Now compare those reports. Roll up your sleeves with the available training completion reports and see if you can develop any trends. Do extended enterprise audiences buy more or less when they're trained or untrained? Do certified partners perform better when certified? By how much? Are customers buying more or less? Are they renewing their purchases when they're trained versus untrained? If you have any training data, no matter how rudimentary, you can put together, you can make predictions based on past performance, and that is how you can allocate the money or get the money that you need to launch the product or launch the program initiative. Quick go through the launch there. So in conclusion, if you can't tell, I'm excited about this topic. I think about this nonstop, and helping organizations fund it and launch these programs is very self-satisfying work. To see it start and to see it grow and to see the impact it makes in the business. But Rome wasn't built in a day. You need to think of the process of launching an EE and growing it as a process and not as an event, because it's all about the continual improvement and making it better. Extended enterprise learning has a dramatic return on investment. That's why organizations do it. It's easy to measure. So you just right from the beginning, you have to start that process of establishing what you're going to measure and then measure it. And measure the changes in audience behavior and improve your processes and continue to make a bigger and bigger impact on your business or on your organization. And what you'll find is that budget will no longer be a problem. You'll be able to self-fund most of your projects going forward or your initiatives going forward. And more importantly, you become a strategic part of the organization and you get a seat at the table. So thank you very much for your time and for listening today. And what questions do you have?
Hey, John, a couple questions came in directly here, and let me run through these while people are coming up with theirs. Do you see more standalone, and I think they mean by this, employee separate LMSs for employees versus a separate one for extended enterprise, or do you see an integrated system going out there these days?
It's kind of like a pendulum swinging. At first, I used to see very separate systems every single time. And now I see, then there was a consolidation where, because as the internal LMSs have gotten better and have strengthened domain capability and shored up some of the marketing aspects, that I see organizations, progressive organizations, trying to leverage the economies of scale of doing it all together. But what inevitably happens is that these sales and marketing groups, they go rogue. A lot of times they don't want to deal with any of the internal politics. And so right, wrong, or indifferent, they'd rather just be in control of their own solution and not have be beholden to any other technology. So it's really across the board.
Okay. When you talk about comparing business metrics with training, do you mean, what level of integration? Do we need APIs to do this, or where do they pull those metrics? How can you pull these metrics?
Mm-hmm. So, ideally, at the end of the day, you want these metrics integrated. So if you could automatically pull reports that have CRM data and training completion data automatically and schedule those reports, I think that's the holy grail, what you're trying to work towards. But that's not where you have to start, because it all starts with proving that initial business case and making an argument internally. So you usually have to start much smaller, and I see organizations using spreadsheets at first with just access and manual comparison so that they can get to an argument that they can prove that training versus untrained groups have a measurable impact on these audiences.
Got it. Is extended enterprise different when you're not trying to make money from the sale of content? And this question comes from somebody who's with a state agency, and obviously they don't sell content. It's all free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So e-commerce portion, whether that's business to business or business to consumer, is something that some extended enterprises have to worry about and others don't. But the commonality of the two groups, whether you have to worry about selling content or not, it's attracting users to the site. So even if you're giving away the content, and I see Nick has a question here, giving away the content or some of your content as a way to attract users and engage and change behavior, all those things are identical for the two audiences. We see MOOCs and a lot of organizations right now give away a lot of free, but then have that premium level of access to membership or different levels of content or deeper certifications or to take the assessments. And certainly that adds a layer of complexity. And as you're looking at LMS vendors, you'll find that some vendors focus more on that business to consumer versus the business to business. So it's different, but it's so very much the same, I believe.
Jack's got a question here, and what are the most successful approaches to selling membership packages, individual course offerings, etc.? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a blend, Jack. I see multiple strategies going all the time. So I think it's common to try to get the onesies and twosies. If somebody wants to come in and buy a course, that's great. I think the disadvantage of doing it that way is that you're always looking for your next meal from a business standpoint. You always have to sell the next one. And so because of that, I think a lot of organizations, and even in our own industry, when you look at a lot of the analyst sites, they have a free level, but they are trying to get you into some sort of membership level where they can invoice regularly, whether that's monthly or annually, so they can build that reoccurring stream of revenue and not be so dependent on the active sales all the time. So I think a combination of the two strategies, in my experience, has been the most successful.
Have you seen customers using like coupons or promotions to get this to get things to seed purchasing and get the system running?
Yeah, that's when I refer to business to business e-commerce functions. That's typically what we see. So you'll see somebody buying so say a channel partner wants to buy 25 seats of a certification for their 25 sales reps that they have. And so that whole process of purchasing the content and getting those users into the system, into the right content, all without any hassle, because if there's any hassle, the voluntary users run away. They just can't deal with hassle. It has to be simple and straightforward. So things like vouchers and POs and discount codes and organizational codes or keys are all different strategies that organizations use to streamline that process of getting users into the system seamlessly, especially those users that aren't doing the purchasing.
Got it. Another one just came in here on the private line. How about customers that are doing channel and who are training their channel and their customers? Do they put one in front of the other typically, or same time? What have you seen?
I think chronologically the channel comes first, but ultimately you want them both on the same system because there's so much common core content that is shared between those two groups. So teaching somebody how to sell and teaching somebody why they want to buy are almost two identical messages on the actual product, the feature set. And so the most progressive organizations are taking channel and customer and tying them together. But if you have to pick a group to start with, I think it's easier to start with the channel because they're the more readily available results of what your channel's partner sales are and what their sales were in past periods. And that gives you the easiest path to climb to make a measurable business case.
All right. Well, Jackie's asking a question here on, is it possible to find LMS platforms that have SaaS offerings so it would be paid on a usage but not a fixed fee?
Mm-hmm.
I suppose there are. I would say, certainly from Salva's perspective, what we're looking at is an annual fee based on users. we have a greatly reduced fee for external users. So it is something, but it is an annual subscription from us on that. I imagine there are some out there that are that may be pay-as-you-go. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's two main approaches, or the main approach is the one that you described. I think that's the most common in the industry. But there is some of the newer, the very newer providers that take this consumption approach, where it's based on the actual usage of the software after the fact, and you're sent a bill for how much you actually consumed. So I do see that business model out there. But it's, as I said, it's typically from the newer vendors. As you become more established as a vendor, they seem to migrate to the more industry standard model.
Hey, let me just ask for any more questions before we get going here, John. This has been great. I think it's a great overview of extended enterprise and some ideas how to build that business case and actually get it funded. One more. Here we go. How often do you measure the ROI of your program after you launch?
So I asked that very question to everybody that's measuring their success, and the answer inevitably is as often as you can. And so the best organization that I've seen takes every piece of content and they make the business case for creating that content, and then they measure it immediately after the launch and every 30 days and 60 days to make sure the efficacy of that content and that it's doing what it's designed to do. It becomes almost an obsession, I think, to make sure that everything that you're doing is impacting the business. And it's such a refreshing difference from internal employee training, where is training impacting the employees in the business? Most likely, but it is so hard to draw any direct line of correlation where it's much easier, or it is easier on the extended enterprise. So I think the more often you measure, the easier it is to grow the business and to make sure you're not going down an errant path.
Sure. So I could see that being, like we talked about, you talked about Cisco earlier. They gave a presentation just a couple days ago. And they're keeping track of the content, I think, on a weekly basis, and things like that. And they're also measuring their impact, because a large focus of their extended enterprise installation is on the partners who actually sell and support. How about with customers? It's more of a customer satisfaction survey, or how does that get measured that you've seen?
I think it's measured on renewals. It certainly can be measured on customer satisfaction and calls to technical support, but it's renewals, it's upsales, complementary sales. Those type of things I think are better. And so, as I started paying attention to that, just give some great examples. So I bought QuickBooks to run Talented Learning from a financial standpoint. And so there's free tutorials I can find. There's access to step action guides and little videos to get me going. But then I get email marketing where they're going to be in the Harrisburg area, not far from where I live in Pennsylvania, and I can come and attend a 2-day or a 4-day seminar, and there's these online certification programs that I can invest in. And so just that one company has like 3 or 4 different ways that they're targeting me as a customer to use the system better, because they know that I'll continue to renew that SaaS and not switch to FreshBooks or some other product down the road, because it'll become so sticky because they've taken the time to groom me into a sophisticated user of their application. And so I think that's the strategy they use, and they can measure it so easily to say, all right, well, did Talented Learning now purchase the W-2 module for QuickBooks, and is he now taking credit cards, because we educated on how you can take credit cards or do wire transfers. And so they can see the actions that I'm taking and the content that I've consumed and make those connections. And I think that's what's fun and powerful about customer learning.
Got it. Wow. Well, great. Let me just give one last call to questions out there. Well, we've run a little bit past our 30 minutes, but I think it's been well worth it. And if the audience, John, so thank you very much. I know we're going to have you back in a month for another. I think we're going to be talking about upping the engagement of your extended enterprise. So I look forward to that. And folks, look forward to that. We'll definitely get an email out. Henry will be sending out the slides and the recording, and so look for that as well. And if you could all join me in giving John a virtual round of applause up here on the emoticons. And I'll thank everybody for their time today, and we will sign off here. John, thanks again.
Outstanding. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all in a month. Have a great day.